Alrighty, guys, let's go ahead and get started on our August Zoom call. I am recording. Hopefully, you are watching back on the YouTube channel about some information and education I give you guys every single month. And this month, I am going to be going over protein powders, electrolyte powders, and creatine. I saw a question about creatine in the group chat, and so I wanted to just address it right here because we're kind of talking about supplements. So I have some notes for you here. I'm going to be kind of rambling. Hopefully, this would be kind of like a mini crash course on all three of these supplements. And I do have a discount code. I will say it right off the bat because I don't want you to lose it within this kind of mini podcast here. But my Just Ingredients code is Kelsey Moore for 10% off. Kelsey as in Kelsee Moore, Moore, for 10% off, which is great. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with electrolytes. Now, the interesting thing about electrolytes is that you guys know me, I take a 10,000-foot view. I think, did our ancestors do this? Can the poorest people do this? Can the richest people do this? Can people all over the world do this? Can every population, every ethnicity, can they abide by my views on supplementation and what is my humanity based view, big scope view of supplementation. And there are parts of that feel like kind of elitist. It's really interesting to think about this dynamic where we've stripped our food down, we've stripped our water down so bad that we're now supplementing food and water, basic items that God has given us. Because our food and water is so bad. And I love that and I hate that. So is the end all be all to take supplements? No, in my opinion. I think the end all be all is eat so well rounded and have such good, mineral dense water and mineral dense food and nutrient dense food and micronutrient dense food that we don't have to supplement. That's the entire idea. I even posted about a prenatal today on my Instagram, that I take birthright supplement prenatal. And even that is like, I love that I was able to post that and give you guys a discount code. But also at the same time, I'm thinking, well, if we had a perfect diet, then, you wouldn't have to supplement it. But the likelihood of that actually happening now in America is so slim. So I always like to preface my conversations with supplements with that kind of idea because I never want you to feel like you have to take these. But these are probably my most common questions outside of fasting, which I got another one on Instagram today about fasting. So let's roll. Okay. Let's talk about electrolytes. Electrolytes are obviously minerals that carry an electric charge. They regulate fluid balance, nerve conduction, and muscle contractions. Basically, how your muscles work is like the sodium potassium pump. When the sodium and potassium pump goes through, gradient levels, when it doesn't work, you'll cramp because your muscle will have an imbalance and it will seize completely. And if it's in an imbalance in the other direction, then you will not be able to have a muscle contraction. They help obviously during prolonged hot, humid training environments or heavy sweaters. You can, sorry, my notes are not the most readable format here. Let me just get that dialed in so I can not bother you guys. Sorry. This is why I do this live. I do it live. There we go. Here we go, chicas. Okay. Um, Basically, electrolytes should be replenished and replaced if you are a heavy sweater or you have very long, prolonged, hot, humid training sessions. You need to replace both sodium and potassium in order to maintain plasma volume and to prevent cramping and declines in performance. How this practically plays out, this is a little science, which you guys get every single month, so I hope you like it, is that when you are exercising and you are sweating, you are, obviously your kidneys are filtering out fluids from your blood and you're urinating. That's part of a filtering system, right? A detox pathway. Another detox pathway is obviously through your sweat glands. So you are releasing some type of fluid through your sweat glands. And what's happening is your blood volume is shrinking through both urine and through sweat while you're exercising. And what that does is that decreases your blood volume because you're sweating water, fluids, electrolytes out, trying to cool your body down and drop your internal temperature because you're ramping it up using your muscles, right? So you're trying to cool yourself down. Your body is bringing sweat to the surface. You're getting rid of fluids. Therefore, your blood volume is shrinking. If your blood volume is shrinking, that means that your heart rate has to increase in order to maintain the work output that you're doing because you have less blood volume. Basically, how your heart works is that you have two factors involved. You have your heart rate, which is the frequency and cadence at which your heart is beating, and you also have how much blood is pumping out. Now, if you're decreasing the blood that you're pumping out because your blood volume is shrinking and your blood is becoming more viscous, it's becoming thicker as you're working out, then your heart rate has to counteract that by increasing your heart rate. Now, as we know, hopefully you know at this point when you're exercising that as your heart rate increases, that can be a limiting factor to your work output because there's a ceiling to that. There's also a tolerance to that. There's a lactate tolerance to that. And the higher your heart rate climbs, the more carbohydrates you're burning. The more carbohydrates you're burning, the more lactate you are building up, which is a limiting factor to exercise. So you can see how that all plays together. So the idea is that if you are doing very long training sessions, which is probably only a handful of you, and what I mean by that is like more than 60 minutes, you're getting to a point where your blood volume is shrinking so much that it could potentially decrease your work output via the system I just explained. So the idea is that if you can boost your blood volume through hydration and electrolytes, then your heart rate can be settled a little bit better. And also through that sodium potassium pump, you're not cramping. Okay, let me just like take a pause to see like if that's like sinking in and what parts of that I missed. But also kind of what goes hand in hand with that is you can't just drink water that has no minerals to it. Your body, because of the osmolarity of your blood volume, your body will just push that water right out. That's why we are not supposed to be drinking distilled water. There's no minerals to it. There's no life to that water. It's not going to be retained in your muscles. It's not going to be retained in your blood. And so water has to be accompanied with electrolytes. And I don't mean necessarily supplementation. I just mean also the natural occurring minerals in water in order to be the perfect osmolarity to hang out in your blood. You can't just drink water. If you just drink distilled water, you will dilute your electrolytes and then you will become dehydrated because the water's not staying in your muscles, staying in your blood. I know it's kind of complicated, but that's why we're going over it. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, I am prefacing all of that with very long, hot, sweaty training sessions. If you do not have long, hot, sweaty training sessions and you're just doing the Crunchy Athlete membership and you are lifting a couple times a week and you're getting kind of sweaty, but like not that bad, in my personal opinion, I do not think you need to supplement with electrolytes. I know there's a lot of brands like this nice Just Ingredients packet of mango lemonade that are marketed towards taking it every single day. And even on the packet, like you can read it, it says ideal 3-to-1 potassium to sodium ratio for daily hydration. And it's like, I don't know if I agree with that, I'll be honest, because that is also with the assumption that you are drinking water that has minerals in it. Now you're probably saying, Kelsey, yeah, I'm going to get them from the Just Ingredients powder that you just talked about, which you can. But I mean more of like you could drink a spring water, a really high quality spring water like Mountain Valley. If you have a reverse osmosis filter, like a Berkey filter, for example, or a clearly filtered, I believe is also reverse osmosis water, which is pulling all of the minerals out. Ideally, then you're adding those trace minerals back in, and you can do that through droppers. You can do Redmond's salt, drop it a little bit in your water, not just like plain no minerals in your water. So I hope that is helpful. Now, for your daily like training sessions and you're getting pretty sweaty and like it's the heat of the summer, then like, sure, I kind of drink this nightly because one, it tastes good and it helps me to not eat dessert, even though there's technically no sugar added. And also, it's a nice mix up of just flat, plain water, I will say. And I'll be honest, like I drink water at work. I don't have a perfect water setup at work, and I'm drinking like hose water at work. I know it's horrible, and I wish that I've made like a better stride towards fixing that, but it's just not feasible at work where I work every day. Um, so I drink 1 scoop of this Just Ingredients Mango Lemonade electrolytes every evening. Now, this is for daily hydration. This is not for my big bad athletes that are going 60 to 90 to 120-minute training sessions. If I will, I'll tell you the next one I would recommend if that's you. But for daily hydration, this one's not too bad. This Just Ingredients one, right off the bat, 3-to-1 ratio of potassium to sodium, which I like. 300 milligrams of potassium, 100 milligrams of sodium. I think that's totally fine. I'll be honest. You can probably get that sodium from food. You probably don't need a supplement. Potassium's a little bit harder to get, but I don't mind this brand. Like everyone knows that Just Ingredients is a very clean brand. So I would say that if you're just a daily electrolyte drinker, having that 3-to-1 ratio in your mind is probably pretty helpful. So 3 parts potassium, 1 part sodium, with a magnesium number hovering between 50 for just like regular daily usage. But if you're doing magnesium for sleep at night, then I would recommend like 200 to 300 milligrams of magnesium. But if you take 200 to 300 milligrams of magnesium, you will get sleepy. So just note that, which is like a wonderful thing. So I'll be honest, at night, if I need a little drink, I will mix my Thorne magnesium biglycinate and my mango lemonade. I'll mix a scoop of each of these in some flat water. And I will drink that as I am going to bed and I'm like winding down in my red lights. Okay, let's keep rolling. When to skip electrolytes is when you just have really short training sessions or low sweat sessions. If you have normal meals and water, and if you're drinking like the perfect Mountain Valley spring water and you do a little Redmond salt like in your other water, like whatever water you get, I think it's fine. Now, if you are a big bad athlete that I talked about and you need more than that, you need significantly more than this, I actually would recommend the opposite ratio of 1 to 2 times sodium over potassium because you will sweat out in those really long training sessions. You will sweat out more sodium than you will potassium. And so a great option for a high level athlete or even your kids, like if you have kids in high school and they're sweating a lot, I would recommend Redmond's Relight, which you guys know I drank a lot of when I was training for my longer races last year. I definitely would recommend Redmond's Relight. And that sodium to potassium ratio for athletes is reflected in that supplement. So I would recommend that. And we all know that Redmond's is one of the best like salt brands like you can buy. So I would definitely recommend them. Okay, let me just go through my notes. Another thing to note is you cannot just take, like, let's say you can't just put salt, a ton of salt on your food or like salt in your mouth and take it and be like, I'm hydrated. No, you're hydrating with what? Like, there's a water component to it. There's a very particular combination of the electrolytes with the water together that make you hydrated. You can't just take the sodium. You can't just take plain water. It has to be the combination. And that is what true hydration is. Let's keep rolling, friends. Per usual, talking too long on each of these topics. Okay. Also, I'm going to drop a book name, The Athlete's Gut. Great book. You guys know I love a good book rec. Don't come after me for it. What I would recommend is looking out for some artificial sweeteners. And I will name drop Element. LMNT company. They have 400 milligrams of maltodextrin, which is an artificial sweetener carbohydrate that is not listed on the nutrition label because they're fat liars. So I do not recommend Element. Nope. And if you're drinking Element and you're telling me that you don't wake up feeling like a blowfish, you've lost your mind because you are, and you're just denying it. Element is out. Okay. Okay, I think I've pretty much covered everything that I want about electrolytes. Let's quickly move on to protein powders. Okay, same thing. Take that 10,000 foot view, and in a perfect world, would we be able to get protein, animal-based protein from whole sources? Yes. If we have an athletic life and we're trying to really change our body composition and our metabolism, should we be taking protein powder? There's some pretty clean options. Um, what I always say right off the bat is that animal-based proteins always contain all of your necessary amino acids. Plant-based proteins do not. So pea proteins do not. So I always recommend an animal-based protein, meaning whey or casein. Or even there's like some egg white powders I think you can get. And also you can get like a grass-fed beef powder, which I actually have personally not tried, but I get some questions about it occasionally. And that might be a decent option if you're lactose intolerant, just so you know. The one thing that you want to always look for in a protein powder is that the first ingredient is whey protein isolate. Whey protein isolate. Okay. I hope you're listening to me. Whey protein isolate. That is the best, cleanest form of getting whey protein. Um, the other thing to kind of note, having this like ancestral, like animal based idea, is that if you think about our ancestors and like how people eat naturally, is that, you know, the conundrum is people are always asking, like, how do I get that much protein without eating that much fat? It's like that is hard to separate. And that's one convenience factor of taking protein powders that you don't have any fat in it. So it does help your protein numbers. But when you think about the ancestral viewpoint of food, you have to realize that they probably took, this is like a silly example, but they probably took their, here's an example, bacon. Let's just talk about bacon. I know it's pork and it's not cows, but let's take pork, for example. Maybe they cut off more of the lard and rendered it down and they used it for more stuff outside of just cooking fat. Maybe they used it for lotions. Maybe they use it to like tan hides. I don't know. There's so many things you can use fat for. And all these farmers' wives are rolling their eyes at me. I know. But like there's so much to like use to suet and lard outside of just eating it. So what I mean by that is in the olden days, we weren't eating the fat off of a ribeye and the butter and the full fat yogurt and the full whole milk. All of the, not all, but a lot of times the proteins and the fats were separated naturally because they were making other things with the fat. So we naturally ate kind of less fat overall, if that makes sense. So take that viewpoint and put it in today's world. It's like, okay, it's probably going to be okay to take like a low fat yogurt option. I know the ancestral side of me wants to throw up at that idea, but I hope you're connecting the dots there and understanding where I'm coming from. Like, it's probably okay to have the low fat option of like a protein powder because in the regular world, we're not eating all of this fat. Like, we're using some of that fat for other things. Okay. Obviously protein powder is major convenience factor, major convenience factor. The main reason why you want to take protein powder is it supports muscle protein synthesis. Muscle protein synthesis basically means that you are rebuilding muscle tissues, getting stronger, increasing your metabolism, all the wonderful things. You do want to potentially skip it if you are hitting your protein goal and your fat goal. If you're hitting those, do not waste your time on this expensive AF protein powder. Please do not waste your money. And in a perfect world, like if you had an abundance of eggs and you needed to hit your protein goal, then great, separate the eggs and the yolks. I'm sorry, the whites and the yolks. Separate those. Like it will be okay. The ancestral mamas are going to throw up at you, but it will be fine. Separate them, eat the egg whites. That is a real whole food version. But if you need mega convenience, girl, buy a protein powder and move on. Move on. Okay, general guidelines is that for women, basic numbers are 100 grams a day. Moving up from that, ideally getting up to a pound, 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. Some things I do want you to pay attention to, though, is that on a really good protein powder, you should see a label for leucine. That's one of your amino acids that you really need, and that's so important in a protein powder. A great example of that is if you look up the brand Ascent, they have 2.6 grams of leucine within one scoop or one serving, which is great. One thing I do not like about the Just Ingredients brand, I have it here. I actually drink this Snickerdoodle protein powder every morning with my coffee out of convenience. Okay. But they do not have the leucine They do not have the leucine indicated on here, which means that, again, based on their electrolytes and their protein powders, they're probably catering to more of like a lifestyle brand, not like an athletic brand, which is fine. You just need to know what you're getting. And this protein is first ingredient is 100% grass-fed, non-denatured whey protein. That feels clean to me. And also the total ingredients is 9 or 10 ingredients for a flavored protein, snickerdoodle. Like, I don't feel like that's crazy. This is egg free, soy free, gluten free. So, like, great brand, just ingredients, but they're obviously catering towards lifestyle and not athletics. Because if they were catering towards athletics, they would have put the leucine amount. But you do want to look for 2 to 3 grams of leucine in your protein powder, ideally. Um, you do want to look for transparent protein sources. You want to look for minimal added sugars. You do want to look for a certification, most specifically certified for sport or informed choice. The NSF, certified for sport or informed choice. These are third party certifications that basically check that there is not ingredients or additives to these protein powders that go against NCAA regulations for supplementation for athletes, and they are extremely regulated. So, for NCAA athletics and also for the Olympics too, it has to be very clean. And so I do recommend looking for brands that have the informed choice stamp, which would be Ascent, Thorne, most like Garden of Life brands. I haven't checked their ingredients lately, so take that one with a grain of salt. But a lot of those brands should have the informed choice stamp on the bag, and I would just really recommend looking at that. Okay, let's keep rolling. Now, I'm trying to think if there's anything else on the protein powder. Okay, let's move on to creatine. And I'm going to quickly hit creatine and then I'll hop off. Okay. Creatine. What is creatine? Creatine monohydrate, which is the one that I would recommend. There's creatine like hydrochloride, I think, and there's a couple other versions of creatine, but I would highly recommend creatine monohydrate. Basically, what it does is it increases intramuscular phosphocreatine, enhancing ATP, which is basically your on-site energy within your muscles. It increases that energy for high intensity and short duration efforts supporting training adaptations. Basically, what that means is that you have on-site ATP, you have on-site energy in your muscles that you use for lifting, for sprinting, and for high intensity short bouts of exercise. When you take creatine, basically what happens is that ATP is re-upped quicker because you obviously drain it and it has to re-up. But when you take creatine, it re-ups quicker, therefore giving you more ability to have a higher work output. Higher work output means more adaptation, more muscle growth. The other interesting thing about creatine monohydrate is that it is cleared through the NCAA to be a concussion rehab protocol, meaning that there is a neurological, a brain benefit to taking creatine even outside of the strength aspect. However, the strength aspect only comes if you are supplementing creatine with strength training. You cannot just take creatine and assume that you're going to grow your muscles. That's not how that works. That's called steroids. But if you take creatine and you strength train, you will build muscle faster, and you'll also have like a brain health component to it, which is great. That also leads me down the rabbit hole of saying that you should not take creatine in the afternoon, in my opinion, because it is considered a brain stimulant. So I would recommend taking your 5 grams of creatine. I haven't said that yet. 5 grams of creatine, which is an average scoop of creatine. I recommend Thorne. This is the brand I recommend here, Thorne. Of creatine monohydrate, 5 grams a day. It's 1 scoop. It's tasteless, so I would just recommend mixing in some water in the morning or some milk or in a protein shake or in a smoothie or something. There's very little to no downsides of taking creatine outside of if you have a kidney disease, then obviously do not take creatine. But for males, they do see an increase in water weight with taking creatine, but for females, they do not. And I'm saying they as in like the scientific studies. And also, women have less endogenous creatine stores naturally than men, meaning that men can take it and only use up so much. But for women, we can take it and use a lot of it. It becomes extremely bioavailable to us. So I do recommend all women after puberty, that if they're strength training, to take creatine. Um, Supports cognitive function. In some contexts, may attenuate age-related losses and support bone health in postmenopausal women when combined with training. I would definitely foot stomp that's amazing. So yes, if you are postmenopausal, you definitely should be taking creatine. I do get a lot of questions about if creatine is safe for pregnancy. I saw one study by Abby Smith Ryan who did a study review, and she talks about the potential benefits of taking creatine while pregnant and breastfeeding, and that there was no contraindications for it. But obviously, right now, you're not going to probably have your doctor tell you that that's positive. And, you know, you're probably not going to have somebody taking the risk of telling you to take it. However, there have not been any negative downfalls from taking it so far that I have seen. What I would recommend is taking creatine with a meal if you can. Having the carbohydrates and the protein with the creatine help the recovery process even faster. Some people ask me if you have to do a loading phase. I think that I think this is true. If you take 5 grams a day for 30 days, your creatine stores will be full, meaning that they will be topped off, which is great. But if you want your creatine stores to be topped off within a week, you would take 15 to 20 grams for 5 days and then drop down to 5 grams a day. The only bummer part about doing like 15 to 20 grams a day is that it can have some like gastric upset. So if you have a sensitive stomach, that may be a little uncomfortable. And I did recently see some stuff about you probably not advised to take creatine and caffeine at the same time, because they both influence calcium absorption in opposite directions. And I need to look into that a little bit more. So basically, all that means is it's probably not a great idea to mix your creatine with your coffee. That's all I say, is maybe mix it in some water or your electrolyte supplement when you're eating a meal. Let me go through here. Obviously, if you're taking any type of pharmaceutical drugs, you should absolutely ask your doctor about it. Let's do a quick recap. Electrolytes used for long, hot, humid, or heavy sweat sessions, targeting around 300 to 600 milligrams of sodium an hour if you are training for a very big race. But if not, then just find a really good water, like a Mountain Valley or like a Saratoga water for every day. You'll be fine with that. If you are doing some moderate training sessions, then maybe consider like a daily usage of something a little bit more, intermediate option of like a just ingredients option rather than going for the Redmond's Relight. Protein's only needed if you want a convenience factor to hit your protein goals. And I am okay taking protein powders from reputable sources. And I do like Just Ingredients, and I do like Ascent. Ascent is much more affordable than Just Ingredients is, but I do like the flavor of the Just Ingredients, especially when I'm mixing it with my coffee in the morning. And then creatine is recommended 5 grams a day. And I do recommend Thorne or another brand that has creatine monohydrate and has the NSF informed choice stamp on the bag. Okay. Hope you guys have a great night. Miss you ladies. Talk to you soon. Have a great night. Bye.